history is full of great discoveries, from cave paintings to ancient ruins, from unearthed skeletons to roads hidden for centuries. The archaeological world is simply full of history that turns the current understanding of ancient times on its ear. I found just such a discovery. It will change the way mankind understands our history, how ancient peoples may have traveled to new lands, and even built structures in the most unlikely of places, like an ancient temple in a remote place called Sneedville, Tennessee. But I will never return there, ever. I will give you, whomever is reading this, clear and concise directions to get there if you feel inclined to check it out yourself. However, I would warn you to read this post in full before you pack up your things and head out. You need to know what you are walking into. Sneedville, Tennessee is a small, and I mean small, farming community in the northeast corner of the state. Steep, rolling hills and hard-cut valleys permeate the area, with almost every piece of flat, dry land you see having been tilled for crops. In the most god-forsaken section of this rural area, there is a small, one-lane dirt and stone road called Black Valley Road. This is not to be confused with Back Valley Road less than 1 mile from it. Sneedvillians are not that creative in naming these roads, it seems. If you could even call Black Valley Road a road, it is a twisting and turning death trap with a steep mountain on one side of your car while a sheer drop is on the other. If you sneeze and twitch the wheel in the wrong direction, you could die. That is not an exaggeration, and if you head out to check if all of what I will tell you is true, you will see that it is, just by driving down this death-defying road. You said 1 lane, so what if a vehicle comes the other way? You may ask. 3 choices. You die, you reverse until you find a spot to pull off, or the other car reverses. These are the only options. Remember, you are a hair's breadth from a cliff that will lead to your certain death. While you are backing up, those familiar with the road do not seem fazed by it, as they take it at 50 miles an hour. I guess it just adds a little spice to their lives. So if you head west on Black Valley Road, the way is not that bad. If you head east, make peace with your God. Either way, a few miles in or a bit longer heading east, you will see on the north side of the road a pleasant-looking cabin, almost a house, snuggled on a hilltop with a winding driveway made of gravel that passes an old 18-nose tobacco barn, now used just to hold a water tank and old tools. A new barn is on the other side of the cabin, all metal and shining, a garish clash between the old and the new. It is behind this cabin, halfway up the mountain, that I found it. The cabin is owned by a family friend, and I have been here dozens of times. I enjoy traversing the woods and little streams, climbing to the top of the mountain, and scampering back down, trying not to twist an ankle. It is a rustic, peaceful, and most beautiful place. You can feel at one with nature. Though I have visited many times, I have never visited in the fall or winter. Normally, the thick trees are so laden with leaves the entire mountainside looks more like a lush, green carpet than a forest. But in the late fall, the trees were barren, and I could see so much more of the mountainside than I ever have been able to before. It was this, and sheer dumb luck, that let me find it. The entrance. I decided on Wednesday morning to hike up the mountain to the top. It is a rough, arduous hike, and the older I get the harder it is to do, but my ego will not let me quit. As I walked up behind the cabin, following an old, rutted path that wound its way past a small pond filled with koi that had been put there by the owners of the property, I decided that instead of plowing straight up the mountain, I would follow the paths that had been cut years before. Each switchback started from the right side of the pond and meandered upwards, then switched sharply to the left, and so on almost all the way up the mountainside. It was on the 3rd switchback where I dropped my phone. I pulled it out to turn on some music for the climb, when it fell from my clumsy fingers and started to bounce back down the mountain. Cursing, I jumped after it, and finally found it as it came to rest next to a large white rock. Now, to be fair, the mountain is covered with large white rocks. They are everywhere you look, but this one, when I got close, was different. I noticed it was pulled slightly away from the mountainside, revealing a small gap with darkness beyond. A cave. This cave was impossible to see from below, and impossible to see from above. It was only if you were right in front of it could you see it, and if it was springtime, the bushes and leaves would have been so thick even that might have been very, very difficult to notice. I turned on the phone's flashlight and shone it in the entrance. I saw a large cave, big enough for me to walk in without hitting my head, go straight back into the heart of the mountain. I was thrilled. My day's plans changed on the spot. Knowing that these caves may have rattlers in them, I decided to head back, get some protection and a better light, and then explore. After arming myself with a large, sturdy flashlight and a machete, I headed back up. I tried in vain to see the entrance as I stood by the pond, but it was impossible. I did notice, however, that the mountain was very angular. I always knew it was steep, but I was just noticing how steep and even it was. It almost looked like a pyramid in the middle of a mountain range that just blended in with all the other peaks and valleys. Pushing these thoughts from my head, I went back to the cave entrance and could not find it, not right away. I was even standing less than 12 feet from it and did not see it. If you go there to see for yourself, trust me, it is there, just not easy to see. Finally, I found it again and stood at the entrance. What was inside? My thoughts raced with possibilities: an underground lake, hidden Confederate gold, a skeleton of some poor, lost soul, or just snakes and spiders. Laughing to myself, I headed inside, turning on the powerful light. As I did so, certain I was only going to find snakes and spiders. Oh God, how wrong I was. The cave went directly into the side of the mountain, heading slightly downward. It made no turns, which I thought odd for a cave, but it was spacious and wide enough to not feel constricting. I constantly shone the light around, but mostly downward, looking for any rattlesnakes. I saw none. Soon, the cave floor became even. The walls and ceiling too. This was man-made. Smooth bricks lined the walls and floor, and the ceiling was stone from the mountain, but ground or honed flat and level. Oh man, I was enthralled. Man-made. My thoughts of Confederate gold grew stronger by the second. Who else would put all this work into a cave in the middle of nowhere? Why else would it have been built? I hurried down the corridor, or path, or tunnel, or whatever it was for a long time. I had to be deep in the mountain before the tunnel ended. I shone the light on a large, heavy square stone blocking the way. It was a different color than the stone of the walls and floor, and was made from one giant slab. On the left side of the slab, about waist height, there was an alcove in the stone, just big enough to fit your hand in. My heart was pounding. I really found something here. My thoughts went back to how this entire mountain peak looked more like a pyramid than anything else, and my heart beat even faster. I had read that they were still finding unknown pyramids in Mexico that had been overgrown and had been mistaken as hills or mountains. Why not here? If this was a pyramid, I made the greatest discovery in North America in ages. A part of me wanted to head back and make some calls, but I did not want to look like an idiot. If this was just a Confederate cache or some previous landowner's version of a nuclear bunker, I would look like a fool. I had to be sure. I shone the light around the stone door. It had symbols chiseled in it. They were not hieroglyphics, but more like icons or Icelandic runes. I could not make heads or tails of most of it, but I saw a few I could tell what they were. The first one I recognized threw me for a loop. Incas, Mayans, and even Egyptians did not use an icon of a sword hilt with 3 crosses above it. They did not use icons of shields with more crosses and what looked like writing in Latin. They did not use icons of what looked like a cup with rays of light shining off of it. They did not use runes that looked like they came out of the appendix from the Lord of the Rings. Yet all of these were etched into this giant stone door. My eyes kept going back to the alcove, which was certainly a handle of some type. I had seen enough Indiana Jones movies to know one thing for certain. I was not putting my hand in there blindly. I did, however, use my machete to pry in there to feel around, when with a loud metallic clank sound, the door unlocked. I stood at the door for a while, excited to go in, and worried that by doing so I could be tainting what could be an epic find. Scientists in white Tyvek suits and 300 different cameras should be exploring this cave, not some awkward buffoon with a flashlight and a machete. It was the thought that if this was a pyramid, or if it was a cache, if there was any treasure in it, the government will claim it, and I will get squat. That decided it for me. Screw that. I pushed gently on the stone door, and to my utter amazement, it pivoted open with just the slightest pressure. This stone had to be 12 tons, but was moved with just 2 fingers. I shone the light inward, and it showed the tunnel continuing downward. I stepped through as the large door slowly started to close behind me. In a panic, I grabbed some small stones and rubble to block the door open. Always leave an exit. When I was confident the door would not close on its own, I started to explore. The complex was massive. I walked miles upon miles, up and down staircases, past tunnels and chambers, and still felt I only explored a tiny fraction of this structure, which I was more and more sure with each passing second was, in fact, a pyramid. I always returned to the stone door just to make sure it was still open, and to reset myself to explore in a new direction. It was here that I started to explore a tunnel that led downwards at a pretty decent angle. This corridor was different than the others in that the symbols and icons were prevalent on the walls. No other tunnel I explored had this. I traveled for what felt like a quarter of a mile. I started to hear noises coming from below. Not loud, just sporadic sounds drifting up from below. By the time my light shone on another massive stone door, I could tell the noises were coming from behind it. A rustling sound, the sound of metal clanking on stone, what sounded like moans. All of these came from behind the door. I stood at that door for a while. I convinced myself that this was another exit to the pyramid, and some animal had made this tunnel its den for the winter. I quietly used my machete again, prying at the alcove in the door, when with a loud metallic clank, the door unlocked. I listened carefully. The last thing I wanted to do was open this door to see a bear looking back at me. Silence, not a rustle, not a sound. I slowly pressed on the door, and as soon as it slid open, two things happened. I saw the glitter of golden firelight piled in heaps across the floor, and off to my right, where I could not yet see, something screamed and thrashed. I heard the unmistakable sound of chains being tossed around, the screech of some beast echoing in the chamber. My heart froze at the sound, and all thoughts of gold, treasure, and a life of luxury disappeared. This screech was unlike anything I have ever heard. It filled me with a terror I have never known. I was unable to move as the door continued to open inwards. I saw more and more treasure being revealed, and on a pedestal with swords leaning against it was a small cup. The creature, whatever it was thrashing with untold fury, and then I heard the sound of a chain snapping. The creature roared in triumph, and here I turned and ran. As I ran, I heard another chain snap and hit the floor, then another. I ran as hard as I could, back up the tunnel to the exit, and then I heard it coming for me. It, whatever it was free. It was racing up the tunnel towards me, screeching the entire time. It ran on two legs, but God help me, I heard hooves hitting the stone. What in hell ran on two legs that had hooves? My heart was pounding with both fear and exertion as I reached the door. The creature was close behind me. Whatever it was cast a flickering light on the walls, as if it carried a torch or was on fire. I ran through the opening, kicking the rubble and stones I placed to block it open as I did, and slammed all my weight against it. It pivoted and clicked. I heard, as if from a distance, the creature hit the stone door. I swear I saw some of the runes flash with a blue light, then fade to darkness. The creature threw itself again and again at the stone slab, but it did not budge. It did not even twitch. The last thing I heard was the creature screech as I ran up the tunnel, and I swear, in that long, drawn-out scream, I thought I almost could make out words. This was 6 days ago. I am now safe in my home state, 12 hours from that creature. I was in the car and flying down Black Valley Road less than half an hour from when that door closed and saved my life. I am going to tell you what I know and tell you what I believe. I know this cave is the entrance to an ancient pyramid. It has to be ancient for the forest to grow on it like it has and hid it from prying eyes all these years. I know how to get to it. Behind the cabin, turn right at the pond, go up the third switchback, and halfway down the path, head downwards, and look until you find the entrance. It is not easy, but it is there. I know there is treasure in there. It is also an archaeologist's wet dream. I know there is something else in there, something that has lived for thousands of years. Not human, not animal, something else entirely. I believe that the pyramid was built by someone other than the Mayans, the Incas, or the Egyptians, someone with Christian icons as part of their religion. I believe that what was inside was, well, it was a demon, 2 legs, hooves, flames, screeching in an unknown language, and a desire to kill, because let me tell you, if that thing caught me, I would be dead. I want this pyramid to be found, and left alone at the same time. I want the treasure I saw, but no amount of money will ever get me back there. I fear for humanity. If that thing is ever set free, but someone captured it, chained it up, it might be able to be killed. But if you want to try it, be my guest. You know where it is, how to get to it, and what rewards await you. But something else waits as well. Good luck.